The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Well, I'm fortunate enough today to have Randy Richmond from the London Free Press with us. Randy, this series we have is called Food Bites, and it's about not so much about the food bank, but just about poverty in general, right? So I really appreciate you coming on because you've done a lot of writing on some of these subjects, and especially in the last year, and especially since COVID has been here. But just to go back a bit over your background, I think it was in 2019 you won Journalist of the Year nationally. Right?
That was correct. And I was one of the first of many people and journalists not to get to go to the live ceremony. And this would be in March 2020. And I thought, well, that smells. For 3 weeks of the pandemic's gonna be 3 weeks long, and I'll be the only person to never go anywhere, do anything. And of course, it's 2 years later, and we've all suffered so much in so many different degrees, from missing birthdays and to what we're going to talk about, the very, very serious problems associated with the pandemic.
So that's 2019, but I presume, I'm just guessing here, presuming the one that really maybe meant more to you than others was the one in 2017 when you got the Michener Award, which is a Governor General's award, as the best journalist of the year. But it was really for journalism and public service. Is that correct? I have that right?
That's correct. The Michener is public service, and it represents competition and stories from all media across Canada, so not just print. Both awards I'm honored to have. The Michener does focus on public service, and that's what I've tried to do in my aging years, is to focus more and more on public service journalism. And so both great honors. And, as we've seen, the pandemic has made accurate and fair journalism even more important than ever.
Yeah. I think too, when people think of a journalist, they think of somebody who's got a beat, right? That they're given a story, they go out and they cover it, and they come back, and tomorrow they're given another story and they go out and cover that. And I know that you've done much of that. But I think what you become known for, and what these two awards were about, was really more of the long game, right? A long story that you follow with a series of articles on a particular subject or subjects. And those were really what you got the awards for. It was that ability to go deeper into a subject, to research, to investigate more, and then be able to elongate it over a period of time and keep the reader's interest. And it happens to do a public service that you're doing, that people learn as they go along with it. Do I have that correct? That's
true. And that is my favorite kind of journalism, one that you can't do every year, obviously, but digging into something, a subject that shows gaps in the system, that show a need for change, and based usually on someone's personal trial and tribulations. That's my favorite. And it does take a lot of time. It can take more than a year. Well, often takes me more than a year to do. And it's expensive for time, for salary, for legal expenses, all kinds of things. And so it's difficult to do. And it's becoming less and less doable as media shrinks, but obviously very important. And I totally respect journalists at all different media who do this kind of work and continue to do it. Yeah. Randy, I think it was 2007 back then, you came with Jane and I and a team of folks to South Sudan. I think it was a great trip, but there the whole idea was really poverty is pretty extreme there. And Jane and I had been working there for a number of years to build schools and help with women's programs, especially. There we got to see poverty just outright. It was there. It was just a part of daily life. But I've noticed, I was looking at an article that you wrote recently. It was just last week, actually, and you didn't, I don't know if you write the titles, but the title of it was about that increasingly
deadly life of people that are living in homeless situations. And so there again, you're confronted with poverty. It's in Africa, it's here. But I think when we look at it here, we're still trying to come to grips with what it looks like, right? It's so obvious over there. But here it's so nuanced. It's hidden amongst social programs. It's hidden in economic policy, even in journalism and the things that might cover or whatever. And but I sensed reading that article, and I know you and Megan Stacey have been working a lot on the homeless stuff over the last couple of years, especially in the pandemic. My sense is that you're a writer that's not so much angry, but frustrated. Would that be correct? Just looking at the tone of that title and also the tone of your article, that's how it felt to me. And I know you somewhat. Do you feel that way?
I do feel frustrated. Sometimes it's exasperated. Sometimes it even hits anger, but I think frustration is a good word. You know, you talked about Sudan, and of course it was in our face and constantly around us. And there were so many people working on it. Here, the poverty, the abject poverty is sort of hidden from many Londoners, especially during the pandemic when people don't go downtown as much or travel to the East End. And I think but the frustration I find here is it's just been going on for a long time, and it's getting worse. There are more deaths than ever for people living on the street and experiencing homelessness. And I know there's many factors that lead to homelessness and continue homelessness, and all levels of government have responsibilities and organizations have responsibilities. But and I'm frustrated because locally we seem to be failing. Now, there's no other better word for it. People are dying, as I said, in record numbers. So obviously we're failing. And so something's happening locally that's not working, and it could be any number of things. It could be lack of cooperation. It could be lack of funding. It could be that we're not shouting enough, all of us, about this. But yeah, you're right. The frustration is coming through. And, you know, there's a caveat here, though. There are many, many people here and elsewhere in the province working really hard. And I'm talking in organizations, in municipalities. So my frustration isn't so much with individuals, but with how we have become, perhaps. Well, I know what we've become, but it's not working. Whatever we're doing isn't working.
Yeah. And Randy, why did you choose the subject of homelessness as something that you wanted to pursue over a lengthier period of time? What made you make that choice?
You know, it wasn't a conscious decision a few years ago or many years ago to choose, I'm going to work on homelessness. It was because I met fascinating, resilient people who were struggling with it. And they impressed me with their honesty and their humor and their courage and their despair as well. This goes way back. I mean, my very, very first story in London, anyways, on someone who was homeless goes back to 2000, 2001, when I followed a woman named Karen Wilson, a Londoner, around the streets of Toronto and London for a while. And, you know, she had addiction, and she had a lot of challenges, and she slept on a grate in downtown Toronto. But she was such a creative, wonderful human being. And, you know, I think that started me on this road to, well, who are the people that we walk by in the street? Who are these people? And so with many of my stories, including the big long ones, it always starts off with a person. I'm not a great data journalist or anything like that. I don't scrape data. I don't know how to use Excel very well, but these people, their stories resonate with me. So I tell them. That's why I started getting into homelessness in London. And then it just seems to have gotten worse over the last 4 or 5 years, or the people who are struggling the most have fallen farther. And I think that has led me to start working more and more on it. I mean, I have the backing of our editors and colleagues there, and all of us in the newsroom recognize that this is a problem in London, and the old ways ways of doing things just aren't working. So not just me, it's every one of us in that newsroom, and I know in other newsrooms in the city are concerned about it. I just happen to have the time and the energy fueled by frustration to keep going at it. And it's just such a human cost to homelessness in this city. And you can't, if you're a journalist and you believe in public service, you can't ignore it.
No. I think too, though, that when you look at homelessness, there's actually different cohorts, if I can use that word, in homelessness, right? There's some in shelters and all over the place, but the ones that you've been concentrating a lot on lately are those that are really the most marginalized, those that are living in forests or different places in London. And they've had quite a saga in the last few years. And we, in the last, I would say 10 years, we have noticed in London, every city is the same across the country, that somehow we're seeing more and more people in those kind of situations. They might be in the street trying to get some money from somebody, or they might just be living down by the river or whatever it is. But it does seem to me that particular group is the most marginalized, the one that's kind of the most out of reach. But they're also probably the ones that are the least understood, because of those kind of situations, to have people that even understand them. If they're part of an agency or in a shelter, there's something there where they, it's not easy living in a shelter either. I think that's really difficult. But the point is, when you're living out there on your own and you're really marginalized in the community, and then COVID hits, right? And the whole community, I think, I was expecting the community to kind of withdraw from those kind of things as it concentrated on its own problems. But that, in fact, in many ways was not happening. At the food bank, for instance, the amount of public engagement at the food bank almost doubled during the course of that. We ended up with 2,000 volunteers where we used to have 1,000, right? And the homeless lunch program that we worked on with 509 Pursuit, the city, and also with the convention center, I wondered how that would go when we first started it. The public just poured out in support of it. So I guess what I'm trying to ask you is, you're trying to put a human face on folks like this, and it's a nuanced one, and I realize it's difficult to write about. But it did seem to me, at least in the first year of COVID, that the public was responding to that. It seemed to me that there was kind of an empathy that was growing that didn't have all the previous judgments to homelessness. Did you sense that?
Yeah, I did. It was a fairly rapid and strong response. I can remember hearing people talk about in April 2020, when COVID had just basically hit, and there were people expressing concern about, what are we going to do with people who rely on services that are being cut? What are we going to do with all this? And so it did resonate with the public, and you could see that in food bank donations. You could see that in how donations to other organizations as well. And yeah, I do believe that the public immediately got the sense that there's these, people that were outside our offices, these people who we saw driving to the Western Fair Market. What's happening to them? I think people automatically had that connection and started to feel that, starting knew right away there's going to be a problem. I mean, we can talk about this, but I'm pretty sure that awareness has not lasted. Perhaps because of the length of the pandemic, because we're all in our own homes, or a lot of us in our own homes working, we don't go out as much, or we're just tired. We're tired and we're worried about our own selves, and our own lives, and justifiably. But I think that public awareness has been strong. I know that there's organizations like the food bank that continue to get donations and support. I'm not so sure all efforts are getting that kind of public support.
Yeah, I think that's true. I also think that when COVID first hit, we were all just adapting, right? We were responding to the challenges that were there. But I think that there was a sense that, whoa, this is a real problem. We were all feeling for one another as a community at that point, and people responded. But I do think they thought at the time of the response that this was going to lead to something. And I think that's part of the reason why they were donating. I think that, yes, they wanted to help people, but boy, if the system is creating this kind of fallout, that's from it, then COVID is going to help us to pull these things together so it doesn't happen again. So I think even back then, a year ago, a bunch of us were talking about, well, we've got a year to prepare. Let's not let this happen again. Let's find out what the solutions are, so on and so forth. And it has happened again. And now I think people, and I know this because I talked to a number of donors, they're discouraged by that aspect of it, the lack of a solution. Whereas before, when they gave, yes, they wanted to help people in their difficulties, but also if their giving could lead to a better solution, they were glad to do that. The food bank ended up giving, as you know, $1 million towards the homeless lunches to all the different groups that were out there. But here we are again, doing the same thing as a food bank. So I'm wondering how, as a writer, as somebody who's a chronicler of this community story and what we're going through, and you've been on it for a while, is your sense of frustration partly about that? I presume it is. I think you've hinted at that. The whole idea that we talked about solutions a year ago, we're talking about it again this year, but we don't seem any closer to it.
No, and you're right. I mean, you don't even hear anymore. Last year, you used to hear, I don't know the phrase, it's a social service or crisis phrase. In a crisis, there's an opportunity to change things permanently. And we all talked about that last year. And we all thought that you're right. We all lots of groups came together, and there were tables, as they call them, of people together, and they were working on long-term solutions. And then another year goes by, and even don't even have short-term solutions. I mean, another winter comes, and everybody's scrambling to help the homeless people who live on the street get through the winter. And meanwhile, there's not a long-term plan. I know the city hall is trying to create a long-term plan. But they're limited by money, and they're limited by funds, and they don't know if the funds they have to support people now are going to continue, and how long they'll continue with the funds from other levels of government. But we don't have that. It's true. I think there is disappointment. I think I'm disappointed that there's no gathering solution. There have been some reports that come out. There have been some recommendations, but there's no sort of rallying cry. There's no network that is working openly, transparently, at least that I can see, to solve these problems and have long-term solutions.
Yeah.
There will be some long-term solutions because we are, intelligent people will come up with some, but I don't know. It's hard to explain, but you're right about that feeling. I don't see that result that we expected. You're right. In the first 3 months, it was like, this is a war and we're going to win.
Yeah, exactly.
Like now, this is our opportunity. This crisis is our opportunity to change systems. Now we haven't changed any systems or moved toward changing any systems, and the system we have is not working any better, or maybe even worse than it was before.
Yeah, I understand federal policies a bit around poverty, and also provincial ones less so, but I do see some of that there. But I don't know what a city does. I mean, their only way that they can really raise funds is either through property taxes, right, or appropriations that are sent out from provincial or federal governments for various the different levels of all sorts of different things. So in order to really build affordable housing, for instance, that's probably the most important thing that you would, and most expensive thing that you would have to take on as a civic government, but you don't have the funds to be able to do it. So you need to be able to effectively manage that with the provincial and senior levels of government. And if that is happening to a certain degree, that is great, but it doesn't seem to be happening at a high enough level, or with an abundance of resources that can overcome these problems, not just in London, but other cities across the country. Homelessness has become kind of an epidemic all of its own. But the homelessness isn't happening in Queen's Park or in the Parliament buildings. It's happening in our communities, and our communities have very little in the way of opportunity to be able to raise funds to address those problems. Do you sense that when you interview people?
I do, and I sense his frustration at City Hall with some of the free press stories, because we're trying to write about what they can and can't do, and what they can do is shelter and some services and some supports. But again, they don't have the money that they need necessarily. I believe there's creative solutions that could happen. There's cooperation among organizations that can happen. There's all kinds of ways that we can improve the situation in London. But when I say all kinds of ways, it's a limited number of ways, granted, because as you say, we don't have the money. And then that brings it back to me to local politicians and, as important, Londoners starting to speak out. I don't know how much we advocate. I don't know how much we rock the boat here.
Yeah.
For other levels of government, I don't know how much our politicians do it. I don't think they do enough. Otherwise, we'd have more money for homelessness. On the other hand, how much do the federal and provincial politicians listen? I don't know, but we don't. I don't see a lot of large-scale advocacy in London by ordinary people, by media, by politicians to get more help for homelessness. I think we have a habit here, like many Canadians do, of trying to quietly get what we want. And we're not getting what we want. We're not getting what we need, that's for sure.
Yeah. Are you saying, because this is how I feel, are you saying that if you take away the other two jurisdictions, the province and the feds, and we know then that we're really up against it as a city, as all cities in Canada are, but are you saying that there is a lack of an overall comprehensive way of dealing with it as people in the city, voters, citizens, businesses, agencies, the city itself? Is that what you're saying, is that each group is out there doing its bit, like the food bank, like the winter shelter thing, all that stuff? They're all out there doing their best to try to make it work, but there doesn't seem to be a blueprint, a kind of overall path ahead that involves all of those different groups and dimensions coming together and working on a plan. Is that what you're saying, or are you saying something else?
No, that is what that's what I'm saying. That's what I feel. I don't know for sure. I know there are groups that work together. I know there are, as I've called them, tables, which is a social service term. Mm-hmm. People are always sitting at different tables. Yeah. And I know there's cooperation. I know that we can't have what we have without some cooperation. But you said the word blueprint, and a comprehensive blueprint involving everyone. That's what I expected to see out of
last year.
Last year, I expected to see it out of the recovery networks. I expected to see it out of the United Way's work on the Mayor's Task Force, Anti-Poverty Task Force. I expected to see much more than I've seen. Yeah. And I expected, to feel, I expected to see that there'd be a coming together of groups. And I know that behind the scenes, there's lots that are doing it. But I also hear from social service agency people and organizations that, yes, there's cooperation, but there's still some silos. There's still some, I'm not going to mention organizations, or I can mention systems. Let's just say that healthcare, for example, is often the system that people have access or have trouble coordinating with. Talking about physical healthcare. Yeah. I mean, look at what happened with the city's winter response this year. It was a scramble again to have a response to homelessness during the winter. And there were agencies and organizations that were expected to be involved that aren't involved. Mm-hmm. I won't get into all the different reasons. We've written about it. There's contradicting stories about who was involved and who wasn't. But if we can't even get in this city 5, 6 groups on board for an emergency response that we knew was coming, because winter comes every year here, it's a sign to me that what happened to the long-term one. I fear that the long-term one will be almost impossible if we can't even get 5 to 6 groups together on a short-term emergency response.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that too. I also see, though, on the other side of things, a public that really did respond, especially last year and somewhat this year, and also business leaders that I've spoken with. They have really wanted to contribute to try to find ways to do it, whether it was land or financial donations or whatever. We received a bunch of that last year at the food bank for the meals, for instance. But they feel out of it they're kind of observing and they're responding as average citizens do. And yet the amount of resources that they have, not just in the area of money, but in their knowing systems and how they work and what they can do. But I have seen those people largely left out of that process. And I did want to ask you then, like, who would you say then, Randy, is the right person to bring that together? Is that the mayor's job? Is that city council's job? Is it something like a chamber of commerce's job? I have no idea. I'm not trying to hint at anything. But in your writing and what you've seen, who would you say would be the point group or the point person that would have to bring that together if it was going to work?
That's a good, tough question. I think it'd have to be someone perhaps at the mayor's level or the chamber level.
Yeah.
Because, and I know that some businesses help a lot. Actually, many businesses help a lot.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the Business Cares food drive. When we had the Free Press had a series in 2019, and we had a public, a community gathering, if you want to call it, and there were business representatives on the stage. They spoke about how they want to help beyond writing checks, right? I mean, they want to do more than that. They want to be part of building a better city. But to combine politicians and business people, I think there has to be political will there to do it. And I guess I would put it in the mayor's office. And that's not to say I don't know what the mayor is doing about this or not doing about this at the moment. And there's lots to do. And I would hate to see another task force created. I would just like to see someone take charge. I'm not sure where it comes from.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody seems to be, the politicians are worried about politics and the business people are worried about business. Who brings them together?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But you're right. We recognized this at the Free Press when we were doing the Face It series in 2019. And we're media, so we're a bit late to the game, recognizing things, but business and social agencies and politicians have to work together on this or it won't get solved.
Yeah. That's my sense. And I do think that the reason why that is so important is not just for London, but, I saw things from the Ottawa angle for 5 years, as you know. And when people were coming to the feds, now this was in 2007, 2008, right? So this is the Great Recession. So obviously communities were really looking for senior jurisdictions to show up to help them with the crisis they were facing. But the ones that tended to be the most successful were the ones that came up with delegations of people that included researchers, that included businesses, corporations, it included community associations, citizenship groups, social agencies, right? Health departments. These were all these groups were all ready when they came. It was multifactional that they rolled out as they made their pitch to try to get the money. And federally, you get a certain amount of money anyway on the basis of your population, but the rest you have to apply for and you have to fight for with other jurisdictions and municipalities. And it seems to me if we could pull that, what you're talking about, together here, that might also be helpful as we go down the road to these more senior places to get the kind of funding that we're going to need, because the city doesn't have it, to get the kind of funding required to build these kind of protections in place. That's just kind of the way I see it. We have to find a way to pull all that together. I just don't know how.
You mentioned something interesting there, which I haven't talked about, and is the research element. In London, post-secondary institutions have done some great research on for example, the discharging into homelessness research that Dr. Cheryl Forchuk has done.
Yeah.
So we have great research and it's very practical research. And I know that some of that research has helped change things here, and incrementally in some ways, in larger scale ways. For example, the research on homeless veterans has helped ease that a lot, right? We're doing a far better job than other places there. So again, and I'm not sure how much they're involved with the business, with the social services, with the community organizations. I know that when the research is presented in London, the presentations often gather, because I'm on these Zoom calls, hundreds of community organization representatives, because they're anxious to know how to make things better. which is a great sign. I don't know how long that, I don't know if that's sustained or not, but you're right. And from what you're saying is, did you see that much from London? That kind of, do we have that kind of, do we have that reputation of coming with a giant, large scale plan like that?
Hey, I'm interviewing you for the first time in our 20-year relationship, and you're asking me the question. I will say personally, just know I didn't see that kind of comprehensive approach to it. I did see people from London coming up, mayors and others. It was great, and they were hosted and stuff. But the comprehensive approach of all of those groups coming together was something that was very rare, if at all.
Yeah, I can see that. And many, many years ago, the Free Press did a series called What's London, and we came up with the idea of islands in London, the academic island, the healthcare island. We're basically a series of islands. And I think it's improved, but I still think there's some of that there that, that prevents us from the collaboration we need. And, I'm not saying it's not easy to collaborate. You must know this. You're, co-director of a food bank. Collaboration takes putting aside egos and putting aside, territorialism, and putting aside sometimes fighting for funding, because I know that organizations are always fighting for this from the same pot. And, when you're trying to survive and help people your way, it might be difficult to sometimes put aside that need to get money. So It's not easy, but obviously other jurisdictions are doing it, are being creative. I always hear that there's places that have solved homelessness, which I always take with a grain of salt. But obviously other jurisdictions are doing better than we are.
Yeah. It seems to me it must be difficult to do the amount of work that you and Megan and others have done. I mean, I think the media has done a great job overall in London about talking about the homeless thing. But you look at it thinking that, okay, we'll disclose these problems. We'll tell the human stories of the costs of what people are going through. Also, the valor, the ability of these people to manage their lives day by day, despite all of the challenges that are there. It's a wonderful thing, but I presume part of the reason why you're writing it, unfolding those things, is because then you want people to see that and say, okay, then how do we fix that? You've inspired us, or you've troubled us about some of these things that have been oversights. And it must be very hard for you, I would presume, as it's been hard for many, including many at City Hall, I presume, that those solutions did not emerge to the degree in which we were able to find those solutions.
It is, because I feel like I'm repeating myself for the past 2 or 3 years or more. And, to make it clear, I'm not the expert. I'm quoting advocates, and I'm raising questions in these stories, and I might be identifying gaps, but I'm not, and I might be having people suggest solutions. I'm definitely not an expert, but it gets tiresome to keep saying, that we don't have a plan, that we can't get this together, that, that harm reduction, for example, is an ideal we're supposed to believe in, but not everybody does. You talk about different cohorts of people who are homeless, and the people who are in the most need are the most difficult to find shelter and housing for. And so some people just can't, some organizations just can't or won't. And so, it's frustrating. I'm writing, stories now, and about the same things I wrote 2 years ago. And it gets frustrating too, because it's no longer, we can all write stories about, Joe Smith, who's homeless, and his struggles. And they're stories that must continue to be told. But I think now journalistically, we always have to add what Joe Smith thinks would solve it, what the people who helped Joe Smith think is wrong with the system, what other people think is wrong with the system. We can't do it every story, I know, but just with it, the sheer number of deaths this year in London, which is now 58 as of mid-December, that alone should be shocking people.
Yeah.
We can't even live in a city where that number is publicly given out. I've talked to the London's Homeless Coalition about why they don't release that number. as a journalist, I disagree with their reasoning because I think many things should be open and transparent. I do respect their opinion, and we wrote a story about that. But we're here in a city where the media has to struggle to find out how many people died.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just this battle, to present not just the human stories, but the facts that they're sort of the context behind these human stories. So that's frustrating. Frustrating that it's difficult to find information here. Frustrating that organizations and agencies and City Hall can get their back up when journalists ask questions.
Yeah.
And again, I believe most people are working very hard and everybody's tired.
Yeah.
And everybody's a bit edgy. So, and I'm a bit on edge too, obviously. It's just, one of the very first things I wrote for the London Free Press back in 1999, I was hired as a copy editor, not a writer. I wanted to be a writer here. And I got a chance to write an analysis piece. And it started off with something like, what was it, Christmas? Christmas, we care about the poor. It must be Christmas because we're thinking about the poor again.
Yeah.
And so that's what happens, right? We think about Christmas all the time. I think we're better than that now. I think London thinks about it more often, more frequently.
Yeah.
But I wrote that back in 1999 or so. And I'm still writing stories at Christmas, trying to get people to care.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Randy, just to close off, can I ask you a personal question? When you first went, where did you go to school for journalism?
I went to Carleton University in Ottawa.
Yeah. So when you first went there, were you aware maybe that your career, or did you want a career that was going to be more about chronicling these longer term kind of issues, systemic issues? Or were you somebody who just went in to be journalism and write a story and the editor gave you a story and you went and did it and then came back, got another one the next day? Did you even feel back then that this was the kind of journalism you wanted to do?
I preferred right off the start, I preferred the longer term feature writing. However, and I have a very wandering path to the Free Press I won't get into, but including years outside of journalism, but that's what I wanted to do. And I went to approach magazines. I ended up working in daily newspapers. So I still like the adrenaline hit of daily stories. That's still fun.
Yeah.
But, I think right from the start, I was more interested in sort of taking some time to explore things. Now, my colleagues and editors would argue with you, I take too much time and I always want too much time to explore things. But yes, right from the start, that's what I wanted. And London has been, and the Free Press have been great places to do that.
Yeah.
Sadly, because the issues are here, but on the good side, because I think readers care. I think Londoners do care to know more about what's going on. I think they do care about injustices. And I do think they care about poverty and homelessness and housing.
Yeah.
And I think they do.
But it's got to be more than episodic, right? Just as you said, at Christmas time, people pour it out. We have food drives that people will do, or there might be a special thing that's going on about homeless folks that's in the news. So people respond and they want to do it. The episodic stuff, I think, reveals the nature of London, that we really are a compassionate community, but we're not necessarily solution driven in some of these areas, right? We ask us to enter in and we will do it. But I think this long-term telling of a story, being this chronicler as the city is on this journey, I mean, where would we be on this story if it wasn't for the media covering these stories on an ongoing basis? If all they did was cover special events, it wouldn't be a story that had any real dimensions to it, right? And it would be a charitable thing that people always just kind of went and did because they cared. But there has to be something in which we then look deeper and start demanding more permanent answers towards these kind of things. And without journalism always telling this story and always saying, hey, this hasn't gone away, it's still here, we're still dealing with it. I wonder if we would ever find that solution as a community without somebody continuing to tell that story. No matter how smart we were as a community, without a chronicler of the story, I think we would lose the message and just go on elsewhere.
I agree. And I think the media also has, and journalism journalists have a responsibility, which we have not always been successful doing, is connecting all the dots between you and I sitting in our nice homes to the people who are living on the street, how the housing prices are making it hard for everybody, making it hard for our children to own houses someday, how the rental market is terrible, the push down to homelessness, and, connecting how we all have, or many of us have, addictions. Some of us it's coffee and red wine, and that makes us upstanding citizens, but others it's fentanyl on crystal meth, so that makes them not upstanding citizens. So I think the media has to do a better job of, I guess, connect not through a charitable sense, but connecting through another sense. Everybody to everybody to the homeless people, because there's connections there, there's costs there, there's right, all kinds of things.
Well, Randy, I think the food bank, and I'm not trying to speak about the food bank and these things, but we have been much more involved in the homeless situation than we had been in previous years. And the pandemic has done that. And once again, it's because the public and the businesses have been so generous and enabled us to do it. It's not all about the food bank. On the other hand, I think it's now been long enough that people are getting discouraged by it. And if it wasn't for the stories that you keep putting out there, you and others, but I think these are the things that become our meat and potatoes as people that are trying to be involved in these sectors and trying to do it. When I think of all of these agencies that are doing the real hard work out there, or the people at City Hall that are trying to get extra funding from these different senior jurisdictions, it's really, really hard work, but you stuck at it. If you would have come along and just treated it as a novel kind of thing as COVID hit, it would have worked. I mean, people responded and it was great, but the solutions never emerged from that exercise. But you're keeping at it. And I just have to think, Randy, that if the solutions do become clearer to us and we begin to act on it, I think you, the free press media in general, have to be front and center in that, because you've worked that story for so long. You're trying to press people to do something about this, and doing it, it's creating people getting a certain sense of angst towards the media about it. And I understand that, but we can't let it go. These are our fellow citizens, and we have to. I just really appreciate that you have done that for so long, and that you have this kind of journalism in your head where you are this chronicler. You're not just somebody that is episodic. I really appreciate it. And I think Londoners need to express that to you as well. We really appreciate that you've kept this story front and center for us, as troubling as it is for us as a community to have to admit that we haven't found a way yet of coming together to fix it. We do want to fix it, but we might lose our way if somebody doesn't keep pointing out we need to keep at it. And that's what you have done. We really appreciate it, Randy. We do a lot.
Well, thanks. Thank you. I'm not sure I want to conduct a poll to see how many people feel the same way you do, but it's good to hear nice words now and then. Journalists don't hear nice words very often anymore. Who does, right, on social media? And I think, trying to be a little nicer to everyone would probably help everybody right now. Yeah. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Randy. And here's hoping that, 2022 might come up with some of those solutions. So I really appreciate you doing this for us. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Due to the length of the preceding program, we now join the regularly scheduled program already in progress.
Hey, welcome back to round 3 of the RTV quiz show, the hottest show on television. Thanks to you guys and all your support. Don't forget to follow me on the fake book, on the Insta scam, on the Twitter face, on all this thing that I might, and soon to be launching soon, my OnlyFans page, folks. You don't want to miss that. All right, here we go. Question 11. I'm just joking. Of course, I don't have an OnlyFans page. I have a fans only page, which means things are in reverse. So if you don't send me money, then I'm going to send you nudes. So it's up to you. Some things you can't unsee, folks. All right, folks, round 3, the category is party music, huh? Everybody loves a good party. Let's see what we got here. Question 11. What was the lead single from the LMFAO album, Sorry for Party Rockin'? How many times I tell you, don't write questions that make me feel old. I don't even know what that means. I don't even know. Question number 12. Whose 1986 single said, "You gotta fight for your right to party"? Now, that's more like it. Who sang that? If you don't know that, then you're really old or really young or dead. Question 13. What song features the lyrics, "Too much pressure" and "I am nervous"? I think that was my wedding song. That was no. That's when the taxi man turned on the radio and a JZ song was on, and a JZ song was on. Question 14. What Euro dance group released the song "We Like to Party" in 1998? Was it A, Eiffel 65, B, Snap, C, Vega Boys, or D, Love Incorporated? If you're having difficulty with this category, you have to remember that in Europe, they have different words for different things because they speak different languages, but like they have different expressions. Like we call annoying, entitled women Karens, and in Europe, they call them Americans. Question 15. Who sang the song "It's My Party"? It was the hit single from the 1963 album "I'll Cry If I Want To." That's one for the old guys. One for the old guys. Now the young guys feel stupid. All right, time for round four. Round four, the category is adaptations. All right. Okay, so like apparently like a movie that's based on a book, or a musical that's based off of a song, or it's things that are more like flexible, like more flexible than my mortgage payments in yoga pants. Like flexibility is the key to these answers. All right, here we go. Question 16. What 2004 punk rock album became a Broadway musical in 2010? Question 17. What 2019 movie adaptation of a literary classic starred Emma Watson, Florence Pugh, and Saoirse Ronan? Question 18. In the TV adaptation of MASH, Alan Alda played Hawkeye Pierce. Who played Hawkeye in the movie? Was it A, Robert Duvall, B, Peter Fonda, C, Elliot Gould, or D, Donald Sutherland? Folks, I must say it's quite the array of A-list actors, full of integrity and professionalism, which I have to tell you, folks, I'm pretty proud of myself, of my professional ethics here. I was approached by a major manufacturer of cleaning supplies to endorse their product on this show. It was a large sum of money. I don't mind you telling you that. And I said, no, I would not sell myself out, that my reputation is important to me. It's stellar and it's clean. Much like my bathroom sink, when I use Ajax, it's hard on stains, yet soft on all bathroom surfaces. So sometimes you got to do the right thing. Question 19. The movie Apocalypse Now is loosely based on what Joseph Conrad novella? A novella, of course, is a small novel with lots of pictures, also known as a comic book. No? Johnny, what are you doing upstairs in your room? I'm busy. I'm reading a novella, Mom. As long as you're not reading those stupid comic books. Question 20. What literary character has been portrayed by Alex Baldwin, Harrison Ford, Ben Affleck, and John Krasinski in film and television adaptations? What's the name of that character? These questions are tough, buddy. There's people who watch this show. This is the only show they watch. You understand? They're Right, time for the answers. Round 3. The category was party music. Here are the answers. Question 11 was, what was the lead single from the LMFAO album, Sorry for Party Rocking? That was Party Rock Anthem. Folks, I have to tell you, the last party I rocked was a gender reveal party. Totally misunderstood the purpose of that and showed up naked. Question number 12, whose 1986 single said, "You gotta fight for your right to party"? The answer is the Beastie Boys. Remember that? You gotta fight for your right to party. Huh? I miss my younger. I know I'm getting older, folks, because when I was young, I used to sneak out of my house to go to a party. Now that I'm old, I sneak out of a party to go to my house. Question 13. What song features the lyrics, "Too much pressure and I'm nervous"? That's when the taxi man turned on the radio and a Jay-Z song was on, That was Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus. We'll also accept the name she goes by when she's in Canada, which is Kilometer Silas. Question 14. What Eurodance group released the song "We Like to Party" in 1998? That was obviously the Vega Boys. The Venga Boys. Question 15. Who sang the song "It's My Party"? It was a hit single on the 1963 album "I'll Cry If I Want To." That was Leslie Gore. It's my party and I'll cry if I want to. Cry if I want to. Cry. You would cry too if it happened to you. Question 16. What 2004 punk rock album became a Broadway musical in 2010? That was American Idiot. We'll also accept Donald Trump. Question 17. What 2019 movie adaptation of a literary classic starred Emma Watson, Florence Pugh, and Saoirse Ronan? I don't know, man. The answer is Little Women. Question 19. The movie Apocalypse Now is loosely based on what John Conrad novella? Heart of Darkness. Question 20. What literary character has been portrayed by Alex Baldwin, Harrison Ford, Ben Affleck, and John Krasinski in film and TV adaptations? That was Jack Ryan. We'll be back right after this with more RTV Quiz Show.
Jeff from Chillin' and Grillin' with Jeff, and we're back with season 3. This season, we've had the opportunity to see some great backyards, to have some fantastic food cooked on some great grills, and this season, we're helping you take your barbecue game up. by adding some great barbecue tips from some local experts on anything from spices to knife care and using the proper wood to smoke some great food. Join us, Chillin' and Grillin' with Jeff, Season 3.
Hi everyone, my name's Ranger M. I love to knowledge share, and that's just what I'm going to do with you. So come on, let's go learn with Ranger M.
I'm Jennifer Slay, the host of What's Up London. Join me each week as I meet Londoners who are doing extraordinary things and helping to make the city a better place to live. Watch What's Up London Mondays only on Rogers TV.
Folks, welcome back. Welcome back to the freshly medicated RTV quiz show. Round 5 coming up. Double point answers. The category is Entertainment Weekly. Entertainment Weekly. So the answers to all these questions contain the days of the week in them. The days of the week. Here we go. Question 21. What 2003 movie saw Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan swap bodies? What movie was that? Folks, yes, folks. Question 22. What was the name of the daughter in the Addams Family? Remember that? Question 23. What words are missing in this Rolling Stones lyric? Goodbye blank. Who could hang a name on you? Oh, fun fact here. It says that Mick Jagger became a father for the 8th time at the age of 73. Huh? Looks like those Stones just keep on rolling. Hey, Mick? Hey, Mick? Where are you gonna go? Question 24. In what movie does Al Pacino play a football coach named Tony D'Amato? Al Pacino. I always feel bad for Al Pacino's younger brother, who never made it big in the industry, his younger brother Cap. But I hear he's going to star in a whole bunch of Tim Hortons commercials next fall. So, question 25. Which of the following was a Boomtown Rats song? Was it A, I Don't Like Mondays, B, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, C, Friday I'm in Love, or D, Wednesday Morning 3 a.m.? Which one was a Boomtown's Rats song? Right, time for round 5. The answers, here we go. Question 21. What 2003 movie saw Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan swap bodies? That was Freaky Friday. Question 22. What was the name of the daughter in the Addams Family? Her name was Wednesday. Wednesday. It's cruel to call your kid something like that. Everybody hates Wednesday. The best way to ruin a Wednesday is when you realize it's just Tuesday. That's the worst. That's the worst. Question 23. What word is missing from this Rolling Stone lyric? Goodbye, Ruby Tuesday. Ruby Tuesday. Who could hang a name on you? Question 24. In what movie does Al Pacino play a football coach named Tony D'Amato? That's Any Given Sunday. Now that Al Pacino is married and a little bit older, they're going to remake that movie where he's just him going to IKEA over and over and over again. Sad. Question number 25. Which of the following was a Boomtown Rats song? That was I Don't Like Mondays. Tell me why. I don't like Mondays, but I love you and nobody else. Till next time, stay calm, stay safe, and stay nice.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.